All right. In this video, I want to ask you the question you see here. Are you really saved? And this is something you need to ask yourself and examine your own self to see if this is true. And the reason why I'm asking this is because of my last video and some things I've been hearing about easy believism. In my last video, I talked about how once you're born again, once you're truly born again, you can't be unborn again. You're saved, and that cannot be changed, right? So you're eternally secure. And that meant, hey, you could go do what you want and you'd be saved, right? But have you done that? Because I've been hearing some of these people talk about the easy believism that has been preached over the years, how these people were told that all they got to do is believe, come up, say this prayer, and boom, they're saved, get them baptized, and then these people just go out in the world and they live the same life. They didn't do anything different. And now when somebody asks if they're saved, they're like, yep, I'm saved. And they actually believe it, right? And what's the problem with it? Isn't it that how it goes? No, that's not how it goes. That's why Paul says this. In 2 Corinthians chapter 13 at verse 5, he says, examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates? So here, Paul is saying, hey, you really in the faith? You really believe? Well, then you're not going to be living like the world. You're not going to be living in sin. You're not going to be looking into some Wiccan witchcraft stuff. You're not going to be looking into the tarot cards and getting into the worldly music and indulging into the movies and the shows that are obviously satanic. You're not going to be getting into Buddhism and Eastern philosophy. You're not going to be entertaining the idea that the Muslims worship the same God and actually give any kind of heed to the Quran. You're not going to definitely become a Satanist or a Luciferian. Not that you would be lost if you were to do such things, but your conscience would not allow you to do so. And if you fought your conscience and went through it anyway, your life would fall apart in chastisement. Like, I'll bring up a couple of passages here. This is how you can examine yourself, because you probably think you're saved, but we're told something here. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 32, it says, but when we are judged, we are chastened of the Lord, that we should not be condemned with the world. This ties into what is said about if we're not His, then we're bastards. We don't know our Father. And the whole reason why people can go and live like the world and they don't receive anything bad, life works out for them, is because they're not really born again. They just think they are. You see, they got a head knowledge, which I'll bring up right here. This is why you got to examine yourselves, because we got two types of people here that hear the word of God, and you might not be able to tell which one's which, but you can examine yourself to see if you're one of these people. Right here at verse 13 of Luke 8, Jesus is telling us the meaning behind the parable of the sower. He's saying that the guy who's sowing the seed is basically the preacher who's preaching the word of God, right? And at verse 13, he says, okay, those who have a rock for a heart here are they which when they receive the word with joy, and these have no root, which for a while believe, and in time of temptation fall away. These people aren't really saved because it's a head knowledge. Where they're like, yeah, I know Jesus died for me and I'm imputed his righteousness, so I'm saved. And I know this, so I'm going to just go do what I want to do in the world. And they receive no chastisement in correction from God. Well, it's because you got a head knowledge and you're believing because it's easy. Right? Here in America, it's not that big a deal to be a Christian. You know, in some areas it's a little more stressful where there's people who are atheistic and with all these different movements, like the alphabet group and stuff, that you say you believe in Jesus, then you're going to get taunted and mocked and uh, maybe even roughed up a little bit depending on where you are and your own build and whatnot. But for the most part, it's not that big a deal. It's not stressful. Maybe you get made fun of now and then, or online people say some things you don't like. It's not that big a deal. It's not a big deal to be a Christian right now in the sense of persecution, and it's not rough. We got it very easy, right? So these people only believe because it's easy. But when things get rough, where let's say they start saying you can't be Christian, all Christians have to be uh, round up and put in FEMA camps. They're imprisoned, and let's say, kind of like China, they're doing something like that, or they go a step further and they say, well, all right, we're going to kill you. And probably before that, it would be something like, oh, you're going to lose your job. You can't work if you're a Christian. You openly want to admit you're a Christian, you can't get a job, right? I think that alone, before it even moves to something like being imprisoned or being put to death, a lot of these people who think they're saved all of a sudden, oh, Jesus who? I don't know no Jesus. Give me that job. Right? All of a sudden, it's as if they don't even know what Christianity is. Never heard of it. Right? That shows that it was just a head knowledge. It never went into the heart. You see, as Jesus tells us here, the Word of God is like a seed. And where it actually takes root is in the soil, not in the mind up here, but deep in the soil, into the heart of your being. That's where the Word of God is to get into by your true belief into it. And then it takes root and it blossoms. That's why we read about here the good soil, right? This person doesn't have a heart of stone. They got good soil. And then the Word blossoms and they produce much fruit of the Spirit, right? So is that your experience? You've accepted Jesus. You're born again. But where's your chastisement for living like the world? Where's the change in you? Where's your love for the Word of God? I noticed that the first thing that I noticed was before I even understood the gospel and understood this gift of grace was that I need to get into the Bible. I want to know who this Jesus is. And I need to get in the Bible. And when I made that decision, I was like, okay, but which one? And I did a lot of studying. And one of the two main things that really narrowed things down was All right, which ones are using the Textus Receptus and which ones are using the Alexandrian text? So that wiped out a whole lot of them. And then which ones are copyrighted? Because that means it's the word of man, not of God, because a man owns it and he can sue you for using his word. Those definitely not the word of God. That's pretty obvious. Everything became narrowed down until we end up getting to the King James. And then I just grabbed a hold of that and got into it and started to understand it better. And what I mean by understanding it better is the Old English, and then understanding God better. And by doing this, it changed me where things that I used to like, uh, not such a thing I enjoy anymore, such as drinking and listening to rock music. Right, that's something I enjoy doing. Just drinking to numb the pain and forget about the world and get lost in the music. That wasn't entertaining anymore. And it wasn't like, oh, I had a struggle with alcohol. It was just, nope, don't even want it. Not a big deal to me. And the music, almost as easy. Some of the music was like, oh, I like it, the reminiscing and everything. And then it was like, man, this music is garbage, and the things that they're saying. It's like, man, I can't believe why was I just putting this in my head? No wonder why there's like so many issues. So, those kind of things just faded away. I wasn't even trying, making an effort. It just kind of, nope. That's one of the things I noticed is the changes just happened. I didn't put an effort into it other than trying to get to know God through reading His Word, praying, and talking to Him about it. And by doing that, He's just like pruning and molding. Sometimes a smack upside the head. Sometimes you need it, and get you all on the right track there. And things just kind of changed from the inside out. And if you're not experiencing something like this, and I'm not saying that, oh, within 3 days or a couple weeks of you being saved, you should be ready to go. Nah, but you definitely should notice something, such as your friends and your family all of a sudden are different around you because the spirit that's within you is different. And you'll notice that family and friends don't want to talk to you so much and hang out so much, where it's not so much that you wanted to stop hanging out with them, but they just wanted to stop hanging out with you. Or when you did hang out, it was kind of like you're just not on the same page. And it's not something that you intentionally did, it just kind of naturally happened. So God like clears out and makes a distinction between the holy and the profane. Not that you're special and perfect in the flesh, but He's like, I set you apart, and now there's a change. And the spirits in other people who don't share the Spirit recognize it, and it irritates them. So, yeah, that was something that built up my faith in God. Like, these people, family and friends, they look at me different. Like I can just show up, not say a thing, and they have a look of feeling uncomfortable, like they're hanging out with a stranger that they don't really want to small talk with, right? It's just kind of weird. But you should be noticing these things. And then if you try to go out in the world because you feel, I don't know, like you want some kind of stimulation, you want to interact with people, you want to reminisce, you want to do whatever it is you want to do, you should notice chastisement. One of the things we would say, I'm trying to remember the phrasing here. Let's put chastised. I think it's in past tense. So let's try that out, because I don't remember exactly the phrasing of it. Alright, I might have to rephrase it. A lot of this stuff is Old Testament stuff, and I know this is... Oh, here we go. Hebrews 12:8. That's the one I'm looking for. Alright, where it says here, verses 7 and 8. Let's do that. I guess I'll highlight it here. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? Right? Right there letting you know, hey, you're going out and doing what you want, living in sin, and you're not receiving any repercussions for it. Well, it's because you're not really born again. You just think you are. But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards, and not sons. So you see that? That's what I tell these people. I preach the gospel to them, and they're like, oh, you're preaching easy believism, do as they will. And I'm like, how do you figure? Yes, you could go do whatever you wanted to do, but you're going to get chastised. And we read a hardcore chastisement in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 1 through 5, where the fella is given over to Satan to die. That's how far God will go, because the wages of sin is death, and you'll die in the flesh. It's not the second death, it's the death of the flesh, right? So, there you go. That's not condoning sin. It's not saying do as thou wilt. It's saying you can. That's like if we're all brothers and sisters, right? Whoever I'm talking to here, I'm your brother. We have the same father and mother. We're growing up in the same household. Let's say we're 10. We're all roughly within a year of each other, all right? Around the age of 10, right? And let's say I'm the oldest one. So you're naturally looking up to your big brother, not because I'm special, but just because that's how things work, right? And mom and pa say, hey, don't do this, but do this, right? And if you do the opposite, you're going to get a whooping. You're going to get a whooping, and you're not going to get any dessert, and you're going to go to bed early, right? So a simple punishment, not like you're going to have your life ended, but there's going to be a punishment, right? And while we're together without the parents, I tell you, yeah, you can do whatever you want, but you'll be chastised. Am I telling you to do what you want? Am I encouraging you to do what you want? I'm telling you, yeah, you got free will. I'm not going to force you to just sit down and be good. But if you do what is wrong, you will get chastised. Am I telling you to do whatever you want? No. I'm saying you've got the free will to do whatever you want, but use your free will to do what is right. Right? And if you take that to mean, hey, well, my brother said I can do what I want, and mom and pa go, hey, why'd you tell them that? Well, I told them they got free will, but if they do what is wrong, they're going to get punished. I didn't say they weren't going to get punished. It ain't my fault that they decided to do it anyway. Your blood's not on my hands. It's on your own. I don't control you, and I'm not going to force you to do this, that, or the other thing. Right? But, yeah. Just a response to these people. who don't really listen to what you're saying, or they do listen to what you're saying, and they're convicted and they want to just silence you. So how do they silence you? Well, they can't exactly do that, so they have to misrepresent you to get people not to listen to you. And it's a shame that that's what happens. A lot of people won't listen to you, not because they heard you say something, but because somebody else said you said something. So, yeah, what are you going to do? And the other thing that I find weird that I'll wrap up with is that these people will say, you're teaching do as thou wilt because no matter what you're saved, so you can do whatever you want. You said you can go become a Muslim or a Satanist and what have you. I'll be like, okay. Did I encourage you to go do that? Did I say that there's going to be no consequences, no punishment? No. I'm saying you got free will and you're saved by grace, which means you haven't earned it, you haven't deserved it, and you don't have to earn it or deserve it in the future. And if you take that to mean do as you will, how is that my fault? It's not. You see, if you actually truly love God and appreciate what He's done for you, why would you do that? You would be a piece of shit if you did that. Do you not care about your fellow man and getting the light to them, being a good example so that when they hear what you have to say, they can't condemn you because they're like, oh, well, look at you and the way you live. Hypocrite. Right? You want to be a light to them, so you got to change yourself too. The only way to do that is to walk with God in prayer and Bible reading. And God changes you. Right? As Paul says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. He doesn't say work for it. He says work it out. You've been saved. Walk with God, because the very next verse says that it's God that worketh in you to do these things. So you need to get to know God, spend time with Him, and He'll just change you. Right? So, that all being said, what it really comes down to is that the only thing keeping these people in line, because a lot of them say, well, then I should just go do this, that, and the other thing, is the fact that they want to save themselves. They want to earn and deserve grace, which you can't earn or deserve, because if you could earn and deserve grace, it's not grace anymore. It's a reward. And salvation is not a reward, it's a free gift. So these people reveal themselves by saying, well, why would I do this if I don't have to do it to be saved? Well, I thought you loved God and you loved your fellow man. And they're like, well, actually, I just want to not go to hell and I want to go to heaven. I'm more about myself. That's why I'm really doing it. Oh, yeah, I know. That's obvious. That's why you want to go live like the world. No matter how many times I say this and how many different ways I say it, there's always going to be somebody. You're saying to do as thou wilt. I never said to do as you will. You do have free will, and you can do as you want. But I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you, take your free will that you can do anything with and freely offer it to God and submit to His will, not your own. You think that's satanic or something? I'm telling you to do things out of love for God and love for your fellow man and not out of love for yourself. Is that satanic? Because that's some of these people say I'm of the devil for saying this stuff. They're telling you to freely offer yourself to God as a living sacrifice. Give your life completely and totally over to Him. Submit your will to His and let him change you so that you can be a bright light to the world, molded into the image and likeness of Jesus Christ. And they're like, you're of the devil. What? Because I say you don't have to do that? I'm just going to keep saying the same thing over in different ways, so I trust you got the point. Thanks for watching and take care.